great honor that I get to introduce our next nurse. So some of you may have already heard about her. She was actually one of the first nurses that was publicly defamed by the media back in July of last year. I remember when I was speaking out publicly on social media, people would send me this article as like a threat, being like, this could happen to you. And I thought, if only I could stand in the presence of this brave nurse that stood up and was willing to take this risk, then I would be honored. And here we are. I get to introduce Kristal Pitter to you guys today.
Thank you so much, Kristen.
Oh. Hello, Toronto!
Thank you to each and every one of you for coming out and supporting us today. I know that each and every one of us here are so very appreciative of your support and your love. I'd like to start with sharing a scripture verse, if I may. Proverbs 31, verse 8. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Ensure justice for those being crushed. My name is Kristal Pitter. I'm a nurse practitioner who is very honored and privileged to be part of the Canadian Frontline nurses and to stand here today with Kristen, Sarah, and Jessica, strong and empowered nurse warriors. I have been practicing nursing for 24 years in various areas, including infectious disease. Nurses are the first line of defense for patients. Through empathetic, evidence-based practice, nurses touch the heart, communicate compassion, and deliver care and services while preventing and/or mitigating harm. I'm a nurse in good standing with no history of any negative performance appraisals or discipline. I'm a truth seeker and speaker. I adhere to moral and ethical codes that are unshakable. I have extensively researched many topics in pursuit of truth and high-level evidence-based information to inform my practice. I'm extremely passionate about bodily autonomy, informed consent, medical transparency, the protection of God-given inalienable rights and freedoms, advocating for the public, standing strong for all that is noble, and opposing and exposing deceit, corruption, and evil. I'm a deeply compassionate person and professional who demonstrates integrity and sound critical thinking skills. When harmful measures lacking medical and scientific evidence were implemented in response to COVID, I embraced the role of whistleblower by boldly and courageously speaking truth on social media to protect the health and safety of humanity despite the risk of opposition, persecution, and retribution. Whistleblowers use free speech rights to expose abuses of power that betray the public trust. If Canada wants to fight against injustice, it needs to ensure that those exposing it aren't penalized.
Yes.
Media outlets published defamatory articles in relation to my Facebook post last summer. I was falsely portrayed as a terrible person, a danger to society, a conspiracy theorist, and many demanded that my license to practice nursing be revoked. The media even mentioned serial killer Elizabeth Wettlaufer in one of the articles. I lost my job and my license is being threatened. This was a direct result of exercising my highest nursing duty to protect the health and safety of the public by providing high-level scientific evidence to inform decision-making. What is considered high-level scientific evidence? Meta-analyses of randomized control trials and systematic reviews are the best evidence in clinical research. These are integral to decision-making in medicine. Anecdotal experience and expert opinion are low-level evidence. Despite being asked for the evidence to validate the actions taken in response to COVID, those in positions of leadership have failed to produce any. There is no evidence to validate mask wearing, social distancing, PCR testing, lockdowns, and school, church, and small business closures. Those that are advocating for mandates are not referencing highest level evidence to support their arguments. We have witnessed a severe overreaction in response to COVID. To paraphrase Rocco Galati, a brilliant constitutional lawyer with 31 years of experience who filed a lawsuit in July 2020 related to COVID mismanagement, the brutal overreaction to COVID is likened to slamming a hammer down on a glass table, shattering it to pieces when the goal was to kill a fly. Every death is absolutely tragic. I don't want to minimize that in any way. I have sincere and abundant compassion for every life that has been negatively affected. However, SARS-CoV-2 is not the unusually deadly virus we were led to believe it was by politicians and health leaders. We have the government data on COVID deaths. When cases are compared to deaths, it's abundantly clear that fear is unjustified. When death statistics are examined, the impact of COVID on population life expectancy is minimal. The death rate in children is essentially zero. Media incited fear, panic, and hysteria through mind game propaganda tactics is entirely unjustified. Our bodies respond to perceived danger with a fight or flight response as a mechanism of survival. However, when we live in constant fear from physical dangers or perceived threats, we can experience negative impacts in all areas of life and can even become incapacitated. Fear weakens the immune system. It can lead to fatigue, depression, PTSD, accelerated aging, and premature death. The world looks very scary to someone in a chronic state of fear. It paralyzes our ability to think logically and critically. The stress hormone cortisol is also an enemy to public health. Scientists have known for years that elevated cortisol levels interfere with learning and memory, decrease immune function, and increase weight gain, blood pressure, cholesterol, and heart disease. Chronic stress and elevated cortisol levels also increase risk for depression, mental illness, and lower life expectancy. Throughout history, logic and science guided medical practice. The sick were quarantined, not the healthy.
That's right.
A focused approach was implemented. Those who were known to be vulnerable were protected. It is well known that the elderly, immunocompromised, and those with comorbidities are most vulnerable to COVID. It is entirely possible to take action in a focused manner to protect those that are most vulnerable while allowing the general population to live their lives. The creator of the entire universe masterfully created our bodies with a magnificent immune system. It consists of lines of defense in addition to functions that cleanse and regulate our bodies. Our immune system consists of our skin, mucous membranes, secretions, the healthy microbiome, white blood cells, inflammation, body temperature, antibodies, and specialized lymphocytes such as B cells, T cells, and memory cells. Our immune systems are also designed to cleanse the body of waste and potentially harmful substances. Old and dying cells and bacteria are cleansed and filtered from the blood by the spleen. There are numerous ways to naturally enhance and protect our God-given immune system that are not being discussed or addressed by public health. We can adopt healthy lifestyles, eat healthy diets that include a variety of foods, including antioxidant-rich fruits and vegetables, get regular exercise, maintain a healthy body weight, stop smoking, drink alcohol only in moderation, ensure adequate hydration and sleep, manage stress, enjoy fresh air and sun exposure, take vitamin and mineral supplements like vitamins C, D, and zinc, particularly during cold and flu season, surround ourselves with social support, adhere to consistent routines, and engage in worship and fellowship. Almost all Canadians are either vitamin D deficient or insufficient, placing them at increased risk for COVID complications. So I ask you, why are vitamin D, exercise, and other measures known to enhance the immune system not being promoted to the public?
It's a kill program.
God damn it!
Medications known to be safe from years of experienced use can be applied to new challenges like COVID. Clinicians refer to this as off-label use. It's interesting that hydroxychloroquine, a medication approved for use for over 60 years and widely used to treat malaria, lupus, and rheumatoid arthritis, was suddenly deemed dangerous as a possible solution for COVID. Ivermectin and budesonide have also been shown to be efficacious in the fight against COVID. Rushed experimental mRNA gene therapy injections with no long-term safety studies have known serious adverse reactions worldwide, including death. It is also well known that adverse reactions post the second injection are significantly worse. Why are healthy people being injected with an experimental gene therapy with unknown long-term effects to protect them from a virus with a mortality rate comparable to the flu? What happened to medical ethics? Human beings should never be experimented on like lab rats. Did we learn nothing from the Nuremberg trials? The collateral damage from COVID measures is causing more harm and destruction than the virus itself. Globally, we are seeing alarming rates of depression, anxiety, isolation, alcoholism, self-harm, suicide, domestic abuse, overdose, cancer and cardiac deaths, unemployment, homelessness, business closures and bankruptcies, destruction of the economy, and poverty. In addition, milestone events such as weddings, births, funerals, baptisms, birthdays, graduations, proms, and other important and special occasions that can never be replaced have been lost. Recently, I was deeply saddened by a video of a funeral service where the sons of an elderly woman who was visibly distraught due to the death of her spouse were forced to move away from their grieving mother to reestablish social distancing.
I've been actually part of those Zoom funerals.
In addition, I personally know of situations where individuals were not able to visit close relatives or a spouse experiencing deteriorating health status who subsequently passed away. In one instance, it had been over a year since being able to visit them in person. I'm outraged, incensed at what is being done to humanity. This is dehumanizing. People are being stripped of their dignity. The following quote was obtained directly from the CNO's digital magazine publication, The Standard, dated January 2021. Nurses have a professional responsibility to not publicly communicate anti-vaccination, anti-masking, and anti-distancing statements that contradict the available scientific evidence. Doing so may result in an investigation by the CNO and disciplinary proceedings when warranted. Unfortunately, attacks on free speech and medical censorship have been occurring for a very long time. There is evidence of this in my own practice. While working in the role of a nurse practitioner in the areas of maternal child health and infectious disease, I was directed by management to stop telling my patients that life begins at conception. This is a scientifically proven fact. Even though a significant nursing role is to ensure that patients are provided with all available high-level medical and scientific evidence to inform their decision-making, I was directed not to do so. It's utterly astounding that facts just don't seem to matter anymore. Please understand that I'm not anti-anything. I'm for the protection of God-given free will.
Yes.
We were created with the ability to think critically and make our own choices. Government involvement was not necessary. We, the people, are able to assess and manage risk for ourselves by completing our own risk-benefit analysis. We are each responsible for our own health and well-being. The brutal reality is that we risk injury and death every single day. Driving a vehicle poses a higher risk than COVID, but we don't ban driving. The College of Nurses of Ontario is a public sector organization that must operate in compliance with the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, otherwise known as the Charter. All Canadian citizens have the right to freedom of conscience and religion, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication, freedom of peaceful assembly, and freedom of association. These charter rights must remain intact when Canadian citizens are registered with a regulatory body such as the CNO. Failure to operate in compliance with the charter can and may subject organizations to legal action. Speaking out in opposition to the COVID narrative places altruistic healthcare professionals in a position that risks their reputation, employment status, livelihood, and license to practice. I cannot and will not remain silent when I know that the measures imposed are not supported by medical or scientific evidence and cause more harm to society than the virus itself. My moral and ethical code demands that I boldly and courageously speak truth to advocate for the public. This demonstrates professionalism and integrity. These attributes are not only admirable, but required as standards of nursing practice. No opposition could ever prevent me from doing the right thing. Nurses are expected to adhere to the standards of practice in carrying out all professional responsibilities. The standards include ensuring informed decision-making and consent, providing evidence-based and ethical care, providing rationale for actions taken, demonstrating sound critical thinking skills, and protecting public safety. The CNO is violating its own standards of practice, including the Code of Ethics, by silencing nurse whistleblowers. Prohibiting nurses from providing all of the available evidence-based information on any topic is in direct violation of these standards of practice. The world has changed, and not for the better. There is something very wrong when persecution and retribution result from doing or speaking the right thing and protecting public health and safety. We are to first do no harm. The book of Proverbs tells us that the first to present his case seems right until another comes forward and questions him. So I ask, why are nurses being prohibited from asking questions? When nurses ask questions, they are demonstrating the very sound critical thinking skills the CNO expects from its membership. Competency demands that nurses demonstrate the knowledge, skill, ability, and judgment required for safe and ethical nursing practice. The CNO is silencing astute nurses with finely tuned critical thinking skills. Why would a regulatory body desire to deliberately target and destroy the nurses who adhere to standards of practice?
I wonder.
Why has respectful academic discussion and robust debate been prohibited? Why has questioning the narrative been outlawed? The science is never settled. Data is constantly changing. The sad and deeply disturbing truth is that science is for sale.
Yes.
We have and continue to be violated by pharmaceutical industry and government. Help us put the debate back into science. I would encourage each and every one of you here today to follow the money and do your own research. Let's work collaboratively to understand what is really happening and why. This has nothing to do with health.
Not at all.
We are dealing with a very sinister, politicized agenda. We are fighting evil.
Yes, we are.
In closing, I would like to share a few scriptures and quotations with you that have proven to be extremely encouraging to me during the challenges faced throughout the past year. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1, verse 7. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be made known and brought to light. Luke 8, 17. And in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, we read, For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And finally, a quote by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, one of my personal favorites. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. Today, we have sounded the alarm. We encourage all of you to get engaged and stand with us in solidarity. Each of us has our own sphere of influence. Make new connections and share the truth with everyone you know. Be strong and courageously stand in opposition to fear and control. We are overcomers and conquerors through Jesus Christ. Choose faith, hope, love, peace, freedom, and joy. Choose to stand on the right side of history. Choose Almighty God. If God is for us, who can stand against us? God's mighty hand of justice will prevail, and He alone will receive all glory, honor, praise, and worship.
Thank you.